Characteristics of living beings. Every living being on Earth have 8 characteristics. First is organization. Life on Earth is organized and hierarchized in levels. Nothing can exist or function without this complex organization. The second one is the genetic code. It is a sequence of noxious bases that combine to produce words in a language understandable to all living beings. The third is response to stimuli. Living beings can respond to different stimuli such as light, temperature, sound, chemical substances, among others. The next one is the homeostasis. It is a set of cell regulation phenomena that lead the conservation of properties of the internal environment of an organism to allow it to have life. The next one is the metabolism. It is obtaining and using of energy. It involves the destruction of molecules and formation of new ones. The sixth is the growth. Living beings increase their volume with the incorporation of new biomolecules. Then is the reproduction. It is the perpetuation of the species with the transmission of the genetic code. The reproduction can be asexual, sexual, or parasexual. Finally is the adaptation and evolution. If a species does not adapt or evolve with its environment, the punishment will be the extinction.
Hi, my name is Vicente Lopez and I'm going to talk about part 1.2 in stage 1, which is about the history of the microscope, the cell and the cell theory. Now let's start with the history of the microscope. First, the microscope is the instrument that allows observation of structures invisible to the human eye. The microscope was created at the end of 16th century and beginnings of 17th. The first person who named this invention as microscope was Giovanni Faber. Then inventors like Zacharias Janssen, Robert Hooke, and van Leeuwenhoek made his own design of microscope. Well, now we're going to talk about the history of the cell. The history begins when Robert Hooke in 1665 published observations he made with the microscope he created. Some years later, van Leeuwenhoek made his own microscope to see cells with more details. Other discoveries of the cell appear in 19th centuries, like Robert Brown discovered the nucleus in plant cells, Johannes Evangelist introduced the term protoplasm. Also, he was the first to describe the cellular cytoplasm. In short words, during 19th and 20th centuries was a lot of new information about the cell, like the parts and his forms. Now it's time to talk about the cell theory. The postulates of the cellular theory affirm that 1. The cell is the morphological and structural unit of all living beings. In other words, all living beings are made of cells and products these cells generate. The second postulate, omnis cellula ex cellula, which means every cell comes from the preexisting one. This postulate debunks the theory of spontaneous generations. The cell is the psychological unit of life. All vital functions take place within the cells, and only one is known to general life. Then, 4. The cell contains the hereditary information for the control of its development, growth, reproduction, and the transmit information for the next generation.
Cells are complex thermodynamic structures that use energy to maintain the conditions that make possible their existence. The cells are composed by three characteristics: plasma membrane, cytoplasm, and genetic material. Levels of organization. There are levels of organization. The first level is that complexity is that of the atom. The atoms form molecules and biomolecules, and these are classified by human beings, and they are organism, organ system, population, organ, tissue, cell, cellular organelles, molecule, atom, biome, ecosystem, community. And then there is homeostasis. The homeostasis is described by Claude Bernard as the stability of physiological parameters. such as body temperature, heart rate, and blood pressure. In 1865, he wrote, "All the vital mechanisms, varied as they are, have only one object: to preserve constant the internal environment." And in 1928, it was coined as homeostasis. Everything in our body is finely regulated by mechanisms that allow us to maintain homeostasis and, therefore, health. Therefore, disease is the loss of balance and homeostasis. Since a human being is born, and with the passage of time, he perceives a series of changes in his body, emotions, and social needs. This has been tried to be defined and classified, and those changes in order to face them and give them an answer in our daily lives. The definitions and classifications have changed through the history of humanity and also depend on the prevalent culture. Physio Psychoanalytic and psychosomatic conceptions relate illness with psychological phenomena or with the soma, in other words, with the body. The Greeks profess culture of care of the body and mind, which is reflected in the phrase a healthy mind in a healthy body. They define health as a natural disposition and the disease as an unnatural condition. And Catholic philosophy understood health as a gift from God. The casual thinking of the health and sickness began to merge, because before it the magical religious thinking was deeply rooted, and health and disease was adjudged to God's work.
Now I'm going to talk about nutrition. Nutrition is the set of biological, psychological, and sociological processes involved in obtaining, assimilating, and metabolizing nutrients for the organism. The nutrition in adolescent is really important because we need to have a healthy life to grow the most. Now, here are some advices. Do not skip any mealtime, choosing the best snack, selecting healthy foods on the street, follow diets planned by a professional, gain exercise, and assume responsibility for the food intake. There are some nutrients we need for our daily life, such as micronutrients that are required in large quantities and are necessary to produce energy and form new structures, such as carbohydrates that are the primary source of energy in the diet, proteins which help in the developing of muscle mass, lipids which are well for the proper hormonal functioning, and there are also the macronutrients that are required in a less quantity but are also as important, such as vitamins and different folic acid and biotin. We need to have a balanced diet in our lives, and for that there is a healthy eating plate, jug of good drink, and nutritional pyramid that help us see in a very visual way what foods we need most and what foods we need the less. Now we'll see the eating disorders, for example, overweight and obesity. That is when your weight is over the one you are usually recommended according to your height and your lifestyle. There's also anorexia nervosa. That is when you start losing weight every time you get nervous, like you stop eating. And there's bulimia. That is when you make yourself vomit, which can be bad because it can damage your throat and other of your system.
The digestive system is responsible for preparing food so that the cells can use them. There are two types of digestion, the mechanical and the chemical. In the mechanical, food is broken into smaller and smaller pieces, and in the chemical, food is broken down into small molecules of chemical energy. There are three phases of digestion, the cephalic, gastric, and intestinal one. In the cephalic, the brain sends messages to the digestive system as a preparation to receive food. In the gastric, the bolus reaches the stomach and the hydrochloric acid is released. And in the intestinal one, the chyle triggers the enterogastric reflex, which will limit the entry of more food. The structure of the digestive system consists of mouth, tongue, salivary glands, esophagus, pharynx, stomach, liver and gallbladder, pancreas, small intestine, and the large intestine. The diseases that you can have are gastritis, peptic ulcer, colitis, and colon cancer. And the main prevention is adopting a healthy lifestyle.
Excretory system. The excretory system is a system of an organism's body that performs the function of excretion, the bodily process of discharging wastes. The excretory system is responsible for the elimination of waste produced by homeostasis. Functions: regulate blood volume and composition, regulate blood pressure, regulate pH homeostasis of the blood, contributes to the production of red blood cells by the kidney, and helps synthesize calcitrol, the active form of vitamin D. Human excretory system. The urinary system is made of the kidneys, ureters, bladder, and urethra. The nephron, an evolutionary modification of the nephridium, is the kidney's functional unit. Waste is filtered from the blood and collected as urine in each kidney. Urine leaves the kidneys by ureters and collects in the bladder. The bladder can distend to store urine that eventually leaves through the urethra. The urinary system. The purpose of the urinary system is to eliminate waste from the body, regulate blood volume and blood pressure, control levels of electrolytes and metabolites, and regulate blood pH. Then we have the respiratory system. The respiratory system is a system in the human body that enables us to breathe. The act of breathing includes inhaling and exhaling air in the body, the absorption of oxygen from the air in order to produce energy, the discharge of carbon dioxide, which is byproduct of the process. And we have the concept breathe. The act of breathing has two stages, inhalation and exhalation. Inhalation, the intake of air into the lungs through expansion of chest volume, and exhalation, the expulsion of air from the lungs through contraction of chest volume. The body takes nutrients from the food and converts them to energy. After the body has taken the food components that it needs, waste products are left behind in the bowel and in the blood. The kidney and the urinary systems help to the body to eliminate a liquid waste called urea, and to keep chemicals such as potassium and sodium and water in balance. Urea is produced when foods containing protein such as meat, poultry, and certain vegetables are broken down in the body. We also have the parts of the respiratory system. We have the upper respiratory tract that includes the nose, mouth, and the beginning of the trachea. And the lower respiratory tract, this includes the trachea, the bronchi, the bronchioli, and the lungs.